Row 0. Soon as
It's all yours.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Here.
It's raining. It's raining candy.
It's raining candy. Hallelujah. All of it. All right, so top of the heap, top of the list, first one in the barrel, whatever you wanna call it. Mr. Bilo, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you for coming, and I'm glad you were able to get in the town hall.
We've got Barbara answered her phone. You guys have my copy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We do. Thank you.
All right. So I'll go over these, then I'll hand out. I do have an extra handout that I'll hand out at the end when we're all done, and I'll just on a sidebar just give that to you. So the first one, first goal for the department is the update of the rec master plan. It is that time again. Actually, we probably are a little bit behind, but I put it off for a couple of reasons, just to try to make sure we've got everything included when we go through this update. So the plan is very similar to what we did back in 12-13, and that is that we'll do it all internal again. We'll have a committee of community members, hoping that we can have a couple town board members, we'll have a couple rec staff, and we'll have a park staff. So the process in 12-13 that we used, I thought worked very well. The time frame is very similar to what I'm anticipating for this one. It was about 10 months from the time we announced the committee to when town board adopted it. So about the same time frame actually. If we stay on the initial plan that I have, we'll have the committee formed and ready to go by early March, which will actually be a little bit ahead of our last one. Our first kickoff for the last go-around was in May, so we should be a little bit ahead of that.
Chris, how do you see that sort of running a parallel track or mirroring with the comprehensive plan?
It's very similar to the last time. A lot of the information that comes out of the comprehensive plan will mirror what goes into the rec plan.
In 2010, were they done at the same time?
Very similar, yeah.
Pretty close.
We were right after
Right
the
after.
comprehensive, which was nice, because a lot of the information that we used in the master plan was already completed through the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so the plan is to then piggyback off that again?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I thought, okay.
The only thing I want you to keep in mind is, as liaison to the library board, there's a lot of chat about possibly having a strategic plan for the library board. And when it comes down to use of the facilities and how one interacts, the two departments and everything, it'd be good to have that in there, in both the plans, and some conversation about how one can work together for rooms, for programs.
I'm sure as we go through, especially from a
Just keep that in
facility
mind.
standpoint, that probably will be something that we can reach out to Bunny.
School district
Yeah.
partnership.
And that was a key piece of the last update anyways, in regards to, I think we called it a facility audit, as to what kind of space the school district
Yeah,
had.
I remember that.
Right.
And what we had and what the library had, so we can make sure that both of those
Well, even
entities get
programming,
included.
not just the rooms, but the synergy there.
So, again, that's very similar from a structure standpoint as to how we did it before. We're actually, right now, Sabrina is trying to put together some of the preliminary requests that we had used in the previous one for looking for some community input for the committee. So my hope is by early February, we'll have something out you guys will see, be able to kind of weigh in on and forming that committee from the community standpoint. Okay. Second one is develop a community center feature. And actually you'll see, before I go on, you'll see between B, C, and D, they all sort of tie back to the master plan. So the master plan was listed first because obviously that's going to be the key for us for this year. The next one is develop a community center feature upgrade. This is something that we do on a regular basis, and we've done quite a bit of, but we're trying to kind of focus on some of the areas within the facility, from awareness signage. People know where the rec office is and the rec department is, similar to where courts is. Just trying to identify how that building is structured and laid out. So a couple improvements from a signage and in organization, some signage inside as well as outside, trying to improve some of the room listings that we have that are on each end of the building hallway. We can use the software that we use for registration through RecTrack to be able to develop some of that electronic signage that might be able to help with being more accurate. What happens a lot now is with the paper, that is, if a meeting gets canceled and it gets taken out of the system, unless somebody physically goes to both ends of the hallway and pulls the sheet and removes it, it stays on the sheet. So with some of the technology that we can use through RecTrack, that automatically gets updated and changed, so it's much more current. The sound system update, that's something that we've talked about for several years, and actually we're in the process of working on that with the Penfield Players. The Players has stepped up and offered to be sort of a partner in that project from a funding standpoint, so that actually may be something that we're able to accomplish this year without any kind of impact from a budget standpoint for us, which is kind of nice.
Yes.
So there's some, and I'm sure Linda, you know, there's some numbers and some quotes that are coming in now for the type of system. Basically, the system would be what I'll say all-encompassing, so not only players would have access to it, obviously, but also all of our programs. So what we're finding is as we bring in some of these new programs, they require some type of audio system that we can't provide. A lot of times instructors need to have Bluetooth capability to be able to teach the fitness class. We just don't have that kind of ability right now in the gym. So again, just make it a little bit more possible for us to expand from a program base too. And then the department exterior signage, we do have a number of people that I think still are confused as to where they're going when they come into the building, if they're going into rec, looking for rec, or they're looking for courts. I think library is pretty identifiable because it seems to be the main entrance to the building. But the rec entrance and the court entrance, we get a lot of people that come into our side looking for where they pay a speeding ticket. And we get a lot of people that go over to the court side looking to where Little People's Gym is. So Jimmy and I, Kreckman and I have had some discussion about some exterior signage and how we can improve so people know where they're going when they get into the facility. C is coordinate with the park staff. Again, very much ties into that master plan. This is something that came about of the last master plan, that parks improvement plan. And actually I just updated that early in January. I'd like to do that every year just to see where we are, and this ties right into that, is to stay on top of, and probably as part of this master plan, redevelop or reinstitute a new parks improvement plan just so we can stay on top of things like the playground updates. It's nice to see that a lot of the updates that were in, or suggestions that were in that improvement plan, either have been done or are slated to be done for this coming spring, summertime. Box turf field, we're on track for that for a spring install. Everything is basically teed up at this point. Once the weather breaks and we get decent weather, that should be able to continue on track.
That's the funky
Correct.
field.
Yep. And then the last one in there is the new grass fields at Rothfuss. We've identified the location. It's the southeast sort of corner of that park for some possible improvements to add some grass rectangular field space. The hope is maybe we can do some of that preliminary work in 18 so that they'd be ready to go for usage in 19. And then the last one is, again, does tie back again obviously to the master plans, and that is what we're going to do is we're going to develop some special, what I call special interest groups or committees. Those family special events, deer, adult, and youth are really our core program areas. So the thought is that a staff person from the rec department will sort of key each one of those areas and develop 2 to 3 meetings that will obviously tie into the master plan, but also give us an idea of community needs and input for program opportunities as we plan out the year. Good example of that is the DEER program, and I know you guys have seen and heard, with all the things that I've shared, the success of that. One of the things that committee's done is it does a great job, because that special interest committee already exists. That's done a great job of just sort of mapping out the year programs and events, and that's really what led to, the growth in that program. Good example is, I know I sent you guys a note that the OSHA program's kicked off a couple weeks ago. They meet on Fridays. There's been over 80 participants that are coming into our building, probably 50% of which have never even been in our facility for a program before, and now are being exposed to some of the other things that we do. So that's kind of a neat new program. And then the last one that's on here is just the continuation of the 501c3, because I do think that is something that, especially with the influx of the DEER programs, that is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. Since 2016, I did go back and pull out the list. Since 2016, there's been just over $4,600 that mainly most of our DEER participants have actually donated back to the town, just to contribute back mainly towards the DEER program. Some of it has just been, a straight, I want to give a $20 to, we had somebody that just donated in early December $1,000. So it's all over the board, but again, I think that's something that should stay on the table and get
And it
wrapped
just
up.
goes into some donation line in
We
the
have,
budget?
yep, goes right into the actual program line. Again, I think most of it, not all of it.
We did all those ones on town board that were in memory of the one
Right.
who passed away,
Yep.
so then
That's
I
the same.
appropriate it right to their.
Yep, they stay right
The
in.
bigger issue ends up being the opportunity for tax deduction.
Correct.
That's the big key.
I know,
And,
for the
Dick
person
that's
Dick has been on again, off again with this, and one of the things that I've said to Dick is let's push this to Macomb-Wisconsin
Yes.
under our contract with them. They've got in-house people.
like it.
Let's,
Yeah.
just get this thing done, and that's been an ongoing, because there's been, a sense of ownership, I get, but we haven't moved really off the dime, and I think we really need to get it off the dime, because if more folks see the opportunity where I can donate 20, 50, 100
Sure.
bucks, and then get a write-off on that, that may help encourage some things as well.
I think is there also an ability for additional types of funding if you have a 501c3?
Absolutely. Yep.
Different
There's a lot of
streams that a
grants.
municipality would not
Exactly.
be able to-
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So that wraps up from a goal standpoint, what the department is sort of keyed in on. Obviously, it all is sort of, I'll say, gonna be predicated by that first one as we update the master plan. So I would expect that, again, probably early February to the middle, you'll see an invite, and, we obviously welcome your participation. And if you're, I think the last one, Linda and Rob, I think
Yes.
both of you actually served on it, so.
And certainly inform us as to, if there's a certain void in an interest group or
Mhm.
something in terms of, people in the community who we think might be helpful. The only suggestion I would make is, I think, to kind of consider or include both in, the master plan as you go through your goals, and also what jogged my memory as far as program areas. It's not a specific program area, but the disabilities, to ensure that people with disabilities are covered both from a facility standpoint, which I think is pretty straightforward, but then within the master plan, as well as program areas, how can we better serve those with disabilities and their families in our community?
Is there any changes with the events, like last year when Steve changed a little bit for what the summer music series was? And is there any addition or deletion of?
No, the structure this year for like the amphitheater series, the concert series, we met, I think it was last week or the week before, we had our little committee that got together. And the thought is we'll keep the structure again similar. Last year it was Tuesday night really is the one that took the change.
Right.
Got off the jazz sort of theme and went to more across the board, different types of music. So that'll continue. Thursday night we'll keep with the family, because I really think that's, again, from from one of our core program areas, that's where we need to continue to put our emphasis. So we'll continue to leave that as a Thursday night.
And well received.
And well received,
Right.
even though as we sat in the committee and talked about it, you know, a number of bands that we have, you know, access to has gone from this to this.
Really?
Yeah,
They're
it's
aging
just-
out?
yeah.
There's
I actually had
there's
somebody-
some bands that were there forever,
I had a
right?
guy call me,
Underdogs and-
he's been hounding us for a while now to get his group in here on a Saturday night. And I said, if you can play kids' music and do a family show, I can slot you into a Thursday, no problem. It's like, I'm not sure that's my genre. So,
Who else?
so anyways, but that will stay very similar. The Saturdays will be 2 bigger shows. We've actually, I think Steve's already got them lined up. We're not going to do Zach Brown Tribute Band. We like to alternate some of those
yeah.
bands. But there's 2 decent-sized acts
Good
that'll
Zach
look better.
Brown.
Themselves.
Forget the tribute band, just go right to like.
To be honest with you, I think the tribute band was just as good as them, so
They get the let out kids show.
there you go. We have them planned Thursday night. So,
Oh, we last week, the person that came before us to talk about the smoking policy in parks and town facilities, you know, she wondered where we were on that. Where are we on that? I know Tony gave that to you to
the,
look into creating a policy or not.
obviously, we can always go back to the, thought of, do we want to create a
Smoke-free.
smoke-free environment in all of our parks? I mean, I think now it's been three, maybe 4 years since we did that survey. And, you know, it's obviously something that comes up on I'll say on a regular basis, and, you know, there's a number of people that I think obviously have strong feelings one way or the other. So it's something that from, you know, a town-wide standpoint to address. All we did before, and after we did the last sort of survey or feeling out of, you know, we just sort of stuck with what the state guidelines were in regards to the no smoking around the playgrounds, did the signage around that. You know, so, you know, maybe that can extend, you know, to, you know, maybe to the athletic fields, et cetera. Obviously, there's issues that come with anytime we do that kind of policy from an enforcement standpoint and those kind of things. So those are all things I think if we go through the process, it'll just have to be hashed out as to how it kind of goes.
And I think the easy enforcement is just call 911.
I think that's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So staffing, any new or modified staffing plan
For
for
this coming year?
2018?
Don't have anything that I expect will be any different. We're at full staff now. We just started 2 weeks ago where we're actually back to full staff with the front desk part-time position being full, so.
You're going to look to utilize interns?
We always do. I mean, if we get them, if we get the applications, we obviously go through that process with them. It's, as you know, and with interns, it seems to be hit or miss. There's some seasons where we can get 2 or 3. There's some, and then we can go for 3 or 4 seasons where we don't get any.
Are they reaching out to you more, or is there some clearinghouse where you
Both.
okay.
But we're on pretty much any of the area schools that have any kind of a rec or leisure, a major, we're on their service list. Typically, Brockport seems to be our biggest feeder, although we will get them occasionally from Cortland. We have had them from Oswego, so I mean there are a number of schools that we do sit on their, you know, their approved internship site list. But just a matter of, truthfully, it comes down to whether or not they're paid and what they're paid and what kind of environment they're looking to work in.
And over the years, we've trained a number and placed a number
I would
across
like
the
to
county,
say
right?
I'd like to say we have a pretty good,
Yeah, we've got a
pretty
great
good
track-
record.
Great
Yeah.
track record,
Yeah.
where folks have come through and touched down in some good positions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you thought about the master plan, that, you know, an intern could be helpful with surveys or help. put
We
things
did with the
together.
last one, we
Yeah.
did actually, there was a couple of students that came out a couple of times and did help with some administration and just did, you know, some of the, what I'll say, legwork of pulling some of our program numbers. So that's not as much even from an intern standpoint, but it is just from getting some college students to be able to come out and sort of get some, I guess, real world experience of, you know, see how things are done.
Right.
They don't want that, though.
No.
Nice.
Besides,
Put it on the resume.
They just want to tweet. It's all college.
besides the monies that we're getting for Senator Funky for the box field, any additional or new capital?
No.
Okay. All right, what else you got for us there?
The only other thing I did want to leave you, and I am trying to stay in my, I went a minute over.
Yeah, well, if you don't hand it out soon enough, it's going to be several minutes, so.
Tracy's not here.
These are the participation numbers. I do like to, at the end of the year, we run a number of reports both off from RecTrack, which are program numbers, and then just general numbers that where we collect enrollment data from events. So the one side that's landscape is actually what our RecTrack numbers were for the year, and as you can see, it goes back for a little history from 2014 to this year. Nice to see that the number of participants continues to grow. So this year, again, we saw another growth in the number of participants. And again, this is just looking at what goes into the RecTrack registration system. So these are actual registrations that have been pulled out. So just over almost 11,000. Number of programs went down slightly, but that's actually pretty common. That's not uncommon. What we do a lot of times is we'll go through occasionally and sort of what I'll say weed out some of those programs that no longer have any, you know, what I'll say.
Really saying
Big
no.
Yeah,
piece.
I was going to ask that, Chris, what was, I guess, the one program this year that when you were sitting around a year ago going, well, let's give it a shot, and then before you know it, it became a big success, and now it's something that is either in high demand or something that you're certainly, going to continue with? What was sort of that?
Well, I'll give you two examples. One is pretty obvious. One is anything that has to do with deer. And if you look on the opposite side of that, you'll see why. Even though these are just from 2017, the deer alone now we've created it as our own program or a core area. So it's we can track it just specifically to that. It used to be lumped in with our senior line.
Right.
Yeah.
From a program standpoint, like if you want to know a specific program, I'll give you the example of what we did this summer, and then we did again in the fall, was the soccer shots program that we had come in. That was a program that was contract based, where they came in, they actually ran the program for us. What it did was it allowed us the opportunity to sort of get away from staffing that on our own. We did it this past year as our sort of what I'll say a trial basis to see how the community would react to it, how people would, and how we liked the program overall. Was it good quality? Was it was it good instruction, or was it just someone looking to come?
Was it worth it compared
Exactly.
to what you were doing?
The response that we got from it, both from a registration and from a feedback standpoint, was fantastic, and it was a very well-run program. So our plan is this year that we can sort of expand on that this year, get out of the business of having to do the staffing of our own, and be able to, what I'll say, go back to this sort of expert that focuses just on this one type of a program.
Good.
I gotta say though, kudos to Pam and your department for
Pam
the
is
stuff with
unreal.
deer and the OSHA.
The deer program
I mean,
is-
the things that you hear, the people, for a while there, so it's, what are you gonna do with the seniors? Seniors, well, they having lunch and they're playing cards, but no. The seniors want this. They want the programming with you learn, you read, it's just been incredible. And I hear all good things.
The deer program has not only impacted, our program numbers, but it's also impacted just the kind of quality of programs that we do. Because I think for a long time, the type of senior activities that were going on, and that was just sort of part of the time, was that passive type of a program.
Right.
And what
And
we're
now
finding
this is
now is
stimulating.
people
Reset
are
every year to be
correct.
the same.
People
Yeah.
want to be educated, and they don't want to
Keep their
stop the
minds
learning.
going.
Exactly. So
But
those
this
those
OSHA
classes are it's
I'm
pretty
wondering,
amazing.
it could get out of hand. I mean, this is the first town that's gone off and done this. And
Yeah.
normally OSHA people, they go down to the old Sears building or whatever, there's different.
Or right out to
RIT
RIT, yeah.
Yeah, there's different places where you can do this, but
Yeah,
right
this
in
is
a
the first time
community
they've
center,
gone to
right
a
in the
community
town,
center.
Yeah.
And as over the Christmas break, I heard on the radio, they had a radio spot, and I heard it probably 5 or 6 times, and it was nice advertising for us. They were advertising OSHA, but then, it was at Penfield Recreation
Yeah.
Community Center, 1995, Baird Road, so it gave us that exposure as well. And like I said, that very first one, there was 80, I think 82 or 87 people that
Yeah.
participated in the class that were the
Oh, that's
first
excellent.
sessions. And those probably 50% were coming in the building, didn't know where to go. So, you know, we had a
Okay.
welcome table set up,
More
and, you know, we had
reasonable.
program information so they could pick up and see what else is offered beyond just that Friday class. But these show, you know, these show that sort of, this report shows that growth in programs. So, you know, you look at the bottom line on the one side from last year, you know, upwards of, you know, 27,000. And again, that's all, some of those programs are, you know, what I'll say, sort of guesstimated, especially when you throw in the, you know,
Yeah.
4th of July and
July,
those kind of
things
things.
like
But
that.
still, that's probably a conservative
Sure.
number when you look at it overall.
When you think about the again, more kudos on the deer progression is, you know, if you combine the participants in deer and, you know, deer and seniors, like they're surpassing the youth
Mhm.
as far in numbers.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. We're an aging community, right? That's what they always
Speak for yourself.
say. You're aging, come on. You're not the young boy I first met. We're all growing.
You're not the first boy, you're not that boy I first met.
No, that's true.
Could I have an extra one for Mr. Moore? Because I know that he enjoys reviewing all this data.
Right.
Chris, how many unique email addresses or household residents do you have sort of in the system?
In the,
I mean, have you done an analysis lately of, you know, if we needed to, you know, send out some form of digital newsletter or some form of updates or menus, calendars, anything like that? I mean, how many residents can we hit?
well, I can tell you that the number of, I can't tell you the number, but the number of household data, or household units that are in the system may not be the same number of email addresses that we have. There's a number of households that are in there without email addresses. I know the e-news is a separate piece to that, not from a registration standpoint, but from a e-news standpoint, that number is significantly increased, and it's up into the thousands now. But actually, the number of households that are in that database, I couldn't tell you. I can find out. I'm sure it's.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, just to, you know,
Well, maybe
one of the
see-
things
see
that
if we're
we
missing.
struggle with at my office is we collect so much data, and then we struggle with trying to find a way to make it worth anything. So I'd just be curious if every time someone does a survey or signs up online and, you know, receives some form of email communication from the rec department, good, bad, or indifferent, just be curious to know if we have a way, and if we don't, maybe this is something that we need to look at in the rec plan, the master plan update for the rec department, is how do we start to modify some of our internal practices to make it more user-friendly via the digital community. So just something to kind of...
Yeah, that makes me think
Sure,
of
I'm
something
sure we
else.
can
The
figure
Penfield Chamber was talking, they're gonna do like a welcome wagon kind of thing, bring that kind of back. Has there been conversation? I know before Sabrina
Amy's
talked
handling
with-
that.
Amy is? Recreation.
Amy's
Sabrina
handling
worked.
that.
All right, okay.
She's got plenty of opportunities for on a lot of fronts to be able to do that. And
Okay.
so that's who
right.
is the focal point.
Okay. Good
So,
to know.
good to know. All right. Anything else, sir?
Good.
All right. Anything else for Chris?
You know where to reach me.
We sure do. We sure do. All right. Thanks.
We know which door to go into.
And we know it's sort of, all right. Okay, we'll shift gears and we will get into the finance world. And with that, Barbara,
Sure.
let's chat finance.
All right, well, I have a few of our priorities as they continue to be kind of similar year in and year out. As far as Logix, as you know, that was implemented shortly about in 2014. Still doing some customization to really get it to be everything that we want it to be. We did add a couple new things this past year that I very much liked, and they've expanded a lot of their staffing, and they picked up some people that really had more government background, so that's been very, very helpful since they're out of North Carolina. But, so we're continuing to customize that whole program for our needs. The banking side of things, M&T is still our lead bank. Key Bank, formerly First Niagara, we still have a relationship with. They actually handle all our HSA funding, so I'll continue to utilize them for that, and they've actually been quite good with that for how that has to be handled along with all the government regulations. So far, the banking side of things is going well. The purchasing and expenditures side of things, the department heads, as I think I mentioned last year, have been really great at kind of embracing things as they come along with some purchasing policies and adhering to getting quotes and making sure. Amy DeBella in my office is wonderful. She's always so on top of things, and she keeps track of every single contract for everybody and sends out an email saying, your contract's going to expire, please make sure there's a new state contract or a new county contract. And I think all the department heads really appreciate her attention to that, as do I, of course. As I said, they've all been really good about that, and there's some new GASB pronouncements that will take place in next year's audit in regard to post-employment benefits. If you remember, we had to start reporting our obligations, our OPEB obligations for benefits, health benefits, and all the actuarial assessments. That's going to be a little bit more in the financials goes in place, actually, part of it goes in place this year. It's phased in over 2 years. So that'll make just some changes in our annual audit that Bonadio is once again doing. And they obviously are always on top of all the GASB pronouncements because that's their realm of expertise. Chris mentioned about the box field, and that's from Senator Funke. That's actually being administered through DASNY. We've had a few in the past that were also through DASNY, so as that comes to fruition, I'll be working with Chris for the box field and Eric Tate in regard to the cold storage facility to be sure that we submit everything to get all our complete funding from those grants from both are administered through DASNY. So that'll be all through the spring and into the fall, I believe.
And nothing is free.
And nothing is free.
The amount of effort and energy that we've had to put in for these two grants,
Yeah.
nothing is free.
You have to
Yes.
administer.
Yes, DASNY, anything you submit, they practically come out here and will measure the length of, in his case, all the length of all the boards. I mean, they
Yeah.
are that on top of all
Meticulous.
their grants, yes. So we'll make sure that all that paperwork is in line. Right, Chris? Absolutely.
He softly said.
Insurance-wise, we actually, as you know, we switched over to the New York Municipal Workers' Compensation Alliance in 2017, and we have actually been quite fortunate. We're kind of doing a bit better on our incidents with employees. I think there's been a bigger focus on some of the day-to-day safety practices of lifting and that kind of thing. Our safety committee here, the town-wide safety committee, I actually took over facilitating that in 2017. And we've kind of tried to be very proactive on getting in touch with employees, and I have to give kudos to Eric over in DPW because they're really on top of things with their safety committee and our connection with the guy from First Niagara, Scott. He is always willing to come out and do any sort of training. We're actually going to be setting up some training this year that he actually just did for the library. We're going to do it townwide about safe lifting and moving, and because actually all of us end up even like boxes of paper and everything just to make sure there's proper lifting techniques and such. So in regard to our workers' comp, our quote for 2018 actually came in essentially flat. So that was the first time in quite a long time that we didn't see a big bump up in those rates. So that was a very pleasant surprise. And as I mentioned, the risk management safety committee, we actually are implementing a new kind of more user-friendly safety manual. I know you guys are all familiar with the one that was done. What year was that done?
A lot of years ago.
A lot of years ago.
It was
and
done a lot of years
it's
ago.
quite voluminous and very in detail, so we're working kind of together to pare it down to be a little more digestible for all employees and kind of sub out and have it be appendices that kind of relate more to a specific job, like something at DPW. Phyllis has actually joined the kind of subcommittee that we have on the safety committee to help with that, so she's doing the writing and such, and we're going to have it be on for all the employees on the employee portal with some links to be able to get to different things. So I'm hoping that it's a little easier one to follow. So we're intending to put that forth in the first quarter of this year with all the updates.
It's probably been close to 20 years since
Yeah.
that was put in place.
It's literally.
I tend to remember it, so
Yeah.
it's within our
Right.
time.
Yep. Mhm.
So I think that'll be a good thing. And as I mentioned, we're also looking to do some kind of, right now, HR does some kind of townwide employee blast for wellness I think it's monthly, and those are always kind of nice because they're kind of bullets and are one-page thing. Going to look to implement that with safety tips as well. Kind of do a blast out to employees about, slips, trips, and falls, hazards as they come about seasonally. Again, just to kind of have people think about day-to-day safety procedures, just to keep, as Tony likes to say, send you home in the same condition you came to work. So that's always the goal. So looking to do that in 18 as well. That's a little off from my normal day-to-day finance thing, so that's kind of nice to do something different.
Well, and it's a nice fit because obviously, any incidents, any claims, anything like that come in through finance, get processed through our insurance company and followed up accordingly. So it seemed to be a good fit, and so it worked well. So thank you, Barbara, for your willingness to take that on.
As far as personnel, as you know, there's 2 part-time people, and things are going well there. Don't need any additional ones. Any computer things, anytime I need anything, Anne's right there if I need assistance. So I don't see anything for this upcoming year. No significant expenditures of any sort for our department. As I like to, I try to attend any local conferences from GFOA and New York State GFOA, as well as the national one. I get more of their bulletins. Obviously, I don't travel to national ones, but I'd like to keep up with that. There's a couple things that I've spoken to Amy and Susanna about maybe doing some training for them this year as well, just because there's always changes to New York State with procurement and rules and regulations. So kind of we'll see what happens with some of the governor's initiatives this year too, which could be interesting and impactful on a local government level. So definitely want to keep up with that. Again, with Bonadio and working with engineering and DPW for the GASB infrastructure updates. As you remember, last year we did some significant updating to what had been done for keeping track of our infrastructure and valuation. So we got a good platform set at the end of 2016, it's hard to believe, but so now I think for our 2017 reporting, it'll be a lot smoother to add in and update our value of infrastructure. And again, kind of like we did with the DASNY grant this past year, kind of look for more funding and grant opportunities as they present themselves, and working with some of the politicians in our area that will, like Senator Funke, who seems to be pretty receptive to listening to the town's needs. The 2019 budget will be underway sooner than you can imagine, the next couple of months. And again, working with the department heads to look for efficiencies where we can and do some kind of long-range thinking as they've gotten, as Chris working on your master plan and Mark working on the comprehensive plan, and kind of lends itself well to kind of multi-year budgeting as well and just long-term thinking. So kind of looking forward to that. That's kind of my world in a nutshell.
Questions, comments overall for Barbara? Anything more, anything less you'd like to see? All right. All right. Barbara, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Right on time, right on cue. Ms. Ann Buck, and we will chat a little bit about the Assessor's Office goals and priorities.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right, so for 2018-19, we're looking at a townwide update. We'd be, of course, in compliance with the state guidelines. We haven't done a complete revaluation since 2014. We've done updates every year between then. With the market that is currently seeing, this year the state has stated that our assessments to sales are 4%. Our sales are 4% higher than our assessments. Last year it was 3%. So we're seeing a higher increase in the market. Therefore, we really need to do a townwide update and get everybody into a equitable situation. So that'll be for 18-19. Computers, basically print inventory, management, copiers, all of those contracts seem to be in order. We did dispose of 2 wide format printers this year and then received 1 new one to take the place of that. It's currently housed in the building department for everybody's use. I don't see any increase or any change to personnel. As far as training, the only conference that I'll probably be looking to attend would be the fall conference. Credits are needed, so that would be coming to you around fall. No changes for the departments. We support through RPS and IPS. We support building, planning, engineering. IDAs for the school district, they're completed. I send alerts to Barbara, Barbara sends those out, and then collection is done from there. For 2017, all of our goals have been met. There was a townwide update. We still have a 100% equalization rate currently. We have 14,088 parcels currently. We administered 12,488 exemptions on the 2017 roll, and even though the state has taken over STAR, it's really taken over a part of STAR. All the current basic STAR remain on our roll. All of the basic STARs that can then go into enhanced STARs once a person says 65 years of age still is ours to administer. So the only thing the state really did was take new people coming in. Special district sewer calculations have been done. PE 748 has been merged into the consolidated district. In doing that, we took a look at all of the parcels, and some of them needed recalculations, which was completed. Any questions?
So I'd like to recognize Ann. So in addition to the assessing component, Ann oversees the computer component as well. She's been doing that now for a number of years. And when we started that, I think that we were kind of all over the board, and we really didn't have a good handle, and I think we probably have the best handle we've ever had as it relates to our computers. So we know when something needs to be changed out and updated. So when you think of the computer, you got to think about all of the back what I'll call the back room stuff that we tend not to think about, but it's all of our servers and all of our switching and all that other stuff that we have to do and keep up across our 3 major facilities. So I just want to recognize and thank Ann for that. That's kind of above and beyond the normal assessor duties, which then themselves are a full-time job, and then the computer component, at least a couple times a year, tends to be a full-time job for that. So, Ann, I just want to recognize you for that and say thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Questions for Ann? Comments? Anything? All right, then we can let these 3 fine department heads on and off on their way. Thank you very much, as always, guys. Appreciate it, and thank you for everything that you do. All right, we will take a short 15-minute break. Oh, and for the record, just wanted to say that Tracy was supposed to be here today. She is in bed with the flu and 103 temperature, so we will get her scheduled in. So
We were happy to have her stay home.
we were actually insistent that she stay home. So that's why we're running a little bit early, and we'll get underway as soon as the team assembles. Struck satellite time 7 p.m. I'll officially call the January 24th, 2018 work session to order. So I have 2 announcements before we get started. First, prior to this meeting, the board met with several of our department heads to review goals and priorities for 2018 from 6:30 to about 6:45, and that information will be entered part of the record. Anyone that's here this evening for Starbucks relocation, Penfield Road, that matter will be held until February 28th, 2018. So if you're here for Starbucks, you've got an early evening. and that will reflect in the held items. We have the approval, we'll let the minutes reflect that all of the board members are present, as well as a few members of staff, and we have an audience with us this evening. We'll get to them here shortly. We have the approval of the minutes of January 10th before us, and would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I'll move.
Moved,
I'll second.
seconded. Any discussion on those minutes?
No.
Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Lisa, as always. We will move on to monthly reports. We have, most of our monthly reports are in. We're missing a couple of them, and I would anticipate that we should have those in hand by week's end. We have no public hearings this evening. We do have a number of guests, so we'll take them in order. The first one is 2130 5 Mile Line Road. This is for a Streamline business in the Four Corners. Mr. Cassell, I'd ask that if you would just tee that further up for the board.
I would be happy to, Mr. Supervisor. We have with us this evening Siobhan Schlosser. She has sent you an email, and I've sent that on to you. Come on up, make yourself comfortable. She would like to open
Siobhan, welcome.
Thank you.
she'd like to open a business in the former site where the Me and You operation was, the graphic operation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about what you like to do, talk about the number of employees, if any, and then hours of operation, that type of thing. We talked about this before, so go ahead.
So I will be the only person there. It's aesthetics, so I'll be providing services of facials, chemical peels, microdermabrasion, microblading, which is a temporary tattooing of the brows, false lash extensions, as well as makeup. So I will be the only employee, and the hours of operations as of right now would be Tuesday, Thursday, from about 1 to 6, 8 at the latest, and Fridays 12 to 5, Saturdays 12 to 5.
Okay.
Have you done this before?
For about 18 years.
Oh, wow. So what's the name of your business?
The Aesthetics, Brown Lash.
Do you have a sketch or anything of a sign?
I do on my phone. Would you like to see it now or after?
If you wouldn't mind, we promise that you will end up with your phone back before you leave here.
Yeah.
And we have, this is all being recorded anyway, so thank you very much.
And actually, if you could send that to me via email, that'd be great.
That would be
We'll
great.
get onto the board.
So as you're looking for that, is the intent and plan to have that within the existing sign box that's there
Yes.
today?
Yes.
So it'll fit that sign box?
Facing 441, facing Penfield Road.
There are actually two sign
Actually, on
boxes.
both
That's right.
Both sides?
There's one on either side for that particular location.
Siobhan, was it your intent to have a sign on both of the boxes? We did talk about that early on, yeah.
And my graphic designers are currently working on it, so if
Okay.
there are any changes you need me to make, that'd
Sure.
be fine.
Okay.
Just trying to get to it a little bit.
Is there anything major you have to do to upgrade inside in terms of equipment or anything like that? Or?
No, not at all. I will come with most of everything I need. The equipment are the table that my clients will lay on, so a couple thousand for that table. It's heavy, so once it's there, if I move it, it's only if I'm moving out to a whole new building.
And essentially no interior remodeling by way of adding or removing walls, anything like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Jim, did the other tenant in that building, she's there?
Yes, she's there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, she's operating.
In the back.
Very
Yes, but
quiet.
again, remember, that was her secondary business, and it's
Right.
not open all the time.
Right.
Right.
But then the
Yep.
building will be
It'll be full.
fully occupied.
Yep.
So that's right there. So that's a mock.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Okay. How do you know rejuvenation? Huh, all right, very good.
And then I would just ask that if you would just send that to Mr. Costello, so he has that on file, that would be great.
Okay.
All right.
Is it by appointment only then? Or
It
is there a
is.
retail component of it where you'll?
By appointment only, because again, it's just myself, so I'll be available for those times I stated. And it'll only be one client at a time. The only time I'd have maybe 5 people at one time would most likely be on a Saturday, and that would be for bridal makeup.
Oh, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
That makes sense.
I don't have any questions.
No, I don't either. I think it's a good use for the.
Good, all
It's a
right.
great use.
When do you plan on opening?
February 1st,
Okay. Very good.
hopefully.
February 1st?
Yes.
Wow.
It's been a long time coming.
It's coming up.
Yes.
Have your signs done?
They're working on it right now.
Okay, you do need to get sign permits from our building department, so you
Okay.
should stop in and see I know you talked to them early on, I think, or somebody did, but you should stop in and see us as quickly as
I
possible.
would just say work with Mr. Costello would be a good point of contact for that.
Talk tomorrow, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Is there anything that hasn't been added to the record that you believe should be added? Jim?
I'm just wondering, is there any remodeling that you're proposing, or just what's there right now?
Painting.
Just painting? Okay.
I think this is certainly the streamlining business protocol that we follow. It gets businesses up and running quickly.
Yep.
And I think it's a great fit.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing any additional input for the board that you would like to share with us at this time? Okay.
Come visit me. I'm open.
Andy?
Yeah, I think you gotta get.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I
Lock up the whole
probably.
day.
You can make it.
Oh, makeup and, yeah.
Okay, so seeing no additional information, is there a motion for approval for this application?
I'll move.
Okay, second.
So it's been moved by Rob and seconded by Linda. Any additional comments, questions, or otherwise?
No.
Jim, we'll be looking for you to follow up to memorialize this in a letter so that the applicant has it for her files, and we
Yeah.
have it as part of our records overall.
Thank you, Tony, and as he's referencing the letter is actually your permit. It's a one-time permit. There will be a fee associated that will come from the town clerk's office, and then once you pay that, you'll be in compliance with our conditional use permit.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
So it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, welcome to Penfield. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Look forward to, seeing you up and running with the new business.
Very much.
All right, very good, thank you. We will move on to, again, a second Streamline approval. This is for a tailor shop at 2118 5 Mile Line Road. And again, Mr. Costello, if you wouldn't mind teeing this up further for the board?
Yeah, you want to come up, Hazel? With us tonight is Hazel Yanni-Yildiz,
Yes.
and you representing
Mr.
Laura-
Gurkin?
Mr. Gurkin. And
Welcome.
Mr. Gurkin came to see me along with Hazel the other day, and what they'd like to do is, he currently operates out of the home at the corner of Baird and Penfield Road.
Oh.
He'd like to move his business out of that site and into the old area where, I'm sorry, this is where me and you were. so
That's
I
right.
take that back. And operate from that site, and I think they're going to be doing some things with Incognito as well, if I'm not mistaken. You're trying to work with them to do something?
Yeah, we spoke with them
Yeah.
and we did talk about some numbers, but right
Okay.
now we're more focused on getting the place ready for
Right.
business.
So, Hazel, why don't you tell the board a little bit about the scope of the business, how many people will be working there, the hours of operation, number of people expected per day, that type of thing. Kind of did that in your letter of intent. I just want
Well,
to get it on the
Mr.
record.
Gherkin has his home tailoring business, as he said, Baird and Penfield Road. He
Right.
also has another business out in Newark, which is quite a while away from Penfield. So he wants to actually focus on Fairport area, and his home business is not getting a lot of attention because it's home business, so he wants it to look more professional. He's planning on opening on February 1st. He plans on working just him. His wife also works with him, and he's overwhelmed with a lot of work. He's sitting over here. He plans to operate from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And he will be Friday a couple of
Sunday close.
So he will be closed on Sundays. By the way, he is an immigrant that came to U.S. about 10 years ago. He speaks some English, but not enough to kind of, talk about all the details, but he knows enough to, run his business. He's been doing that for years in the U.S. So that's about it. Any other questions?
Signage.
Signage?
Signage.
He's working on that right now. He
Okay.
already did his down payment and first month's rent with them, and he's just finished his dressing rooms, and he's gonna be doing some painting, interior painting, and he's going to use both of the frames on the building, as well as the windows.
And I had to jump in for a minute, because I misled you with the last application.
Right.
Yeah.
She was next door.
She's there.
Right, in Ron
So when the
Brody's,
signs
Ron
came around,
Brody's.
You knew that, 'cause
Yeah.
you brought that
The
in.
sign
so-
proposal came around.
Yes, that's right. This is the one where they would
Got
use
it.
bump to sign, yep.
Right.
Fine, thanks.
It's a location.
The name of the, what's the name of the, okay, at the corner of Barrett and Penfield just says Tailor. Is there a name of the business in Newark? Is there, is it Gherkin?
Gherkin Tailoring. It's, I
Okay.
think it's right across from Bank of America.
Okay.
Is that-
Bank of America in Carson, isn't it? Newark, like it.
Well,
It's like right in.
Yes,
right.
in
No,
the-
that's
Yes,
fine.
sir.
I just wondered, for a sign in the four
Um,
corners, will it be Gherkin Tailor?
Yes, his last name is Gherkin,
Gherkin.
Gurcan.
Yeah.
So it will be Gherkin Tailoring.
So where he lives now at the corner of Baird and Penfield Road? That's his residence?
Yes, he lives there, and when he bought the house, like the previous owner, also had like little grooming shop where
Right,
his
I remember
tailoring
that.
shop.
Right.
Yeah. So his intent now is just to live on the site as a residence and not have any business at the site?
Evdeki dükkanı kapatacak mısın?
Ya orada kapatacak ya.
Yeah, he's gonna close it.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that, does the customary home occupation, does that permit then end, or how does that?
Yeah, it ends with, I mean, if he came back and wanted to do it again at that site, or somebody else bought the property and wanted to do it, they could. As long as they're the only ones working there, you couldn't bring, you and I could not go there and work
Employees.
on the site.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions?
No.
No, I
I
think
think it's a good
everything,
spot, a good
He
location.
expects to have 3 to 4 at the most customers at that time. I don't think it will be very busy. I forgot your name.
Jim.
Jim, yes, Jim told me that the town owns part of the parking lot, which is, great that, he will be able to
Use
have
that.
the area for his customers, so.
And that location was a tailor shop for many, many years in the town. It was, yeah.
Prior
So-
to Incognito, or?
So Incognito was there for a short time. They purchased the business, and that business was there for many, many, many years. Then they essentially sold the business, and it kind of changed a little bit with Incognito kind of branching out a little bit more. They moved next door, and then that corner has been on again, off again for different small businesses.
That was a
But
tuxedo shop,
it has
actually.
been recognized as a tailor shop for many, many years. So that may be beneficial to his business.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That's great. Yeah. Önceden terzi dükkanıymış
So.
orası. İyi olabilir onun için. Onun çünkü terziye olarak bir namı var diyor dükkanın.
Okay, so any questions for the board that you might have?
Bir sorun var mı? Buradaki insanlara?
Yok, bir sorun yok. Hepsini bekleriz ya.
No, I expect to see all of you there.
Yeah, I'll go from the facial over to have some repairs done to my clothes. So,
Well,
all right.
I think he dry cleaning, değil mi?
Yeah,
Yeah. He plans on doing dry cleaning as well.
Okay.
So,
but not on site, you would have it taken somewhere else?
right, like he will take them and then take them to a wholesale dry cleaner.
Provide the service, so you can drop off and pick up, but
Right.
not actual dry cleaning on the site.
Right,
So,
right.
okay.
Very good.
All right, Jim, anything that you believe should be added to the record that has not been added to the record already?
No, I think, again, as we talked to the last applicant, he will be responsible for getting sign permits, and he'll come to the building department for that. And then also, we will be sending you a permit, and he'll have to pay for that permit. It's a one-time permit, and then he'll be in compliance with
So
code.
does he have to come back and town for?
No, he can just meet with me if he wants to, and
After
take
the
care of
meeting
that. Yeah.
tonight?
No, it'll be during the daytime at some point in time, you
Oh,
have to come
okay.
back, just like you did the other day.
Oh, so just
Uh,
walk in
Yeah, and we'll help you through that process. We'll get
Okay.
through the sign process.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Signage and permit vamos a querer
Yeah.
que sepa de que paramos.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion of approval for this business and on the corner of 441 and 5 Mile Line Road.
I'll move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no additional comments, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much, congratulations. Look forward to you opening it up.
Okay, thank you.
All
very
right,
much
thank you for your
having
time.
us tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, we'll move on to, take care. We'll move on to our third guest. This is for discussion regarding transfer of development rights from one project off in Plank and Shoecraft Road to another project on Scribner Road. And with that, I see Mr. Philippone and Mr. Baker and Mr. Costello. I'd ask if you would, again, tee it up for the board, if you
Be
will.
happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Several months
See ya.
ago, Steve and Walt came to a PRC meeting, interested in the possibility of discussing the philosophy of and the possibility of transferring development rights from one property that Steve owns and has been developing known as Crown Point over off of Plank Road in that area,
Slide that right over
to a
the
property
board if you
he's
want.
in the process or
Thanks,
about
Paul.
to purchase. You haven't purchased it yet, I don't-
We're closing on Friday.
Okay, so you're in the process of purchasing it. His intent was to transfer some units, and we'll talk about the specifics of it in a minute, but just to give you the background, transferring some units off of the Crown Point project to create more like estate lots. And I believe that's phase 4, Crown Point, if I'm not mistaken, is that
Correct.
phase 4? And then he would like to transfer these units to a property that he's purchasing, which is, and I'll let you give the specifics, across from Bay Trail School, with the intent of developing a townhouse project and the intent of preserving a portion of that property. Certainly, we have not done this in the past, but to give you some background, in the 1990 comprehensive plan, going back that far, one of the recommendations was at that point in time for the town to investigate the use of transfer of development rights. There were some issues about sanitary sewerage and all that business going on at the time, and they thought that it might be appropriate to have them in one spot versus another. And we were also looking at the possibility of developing a open space program, which you eventually did, and you were sitting on that committee. So we have not talked about it in the 2000, we've not talked about it in the 2010, but there was some documentation in 1990. That being said, there's also documentation that I sent, and Dick Horowitz and I have been talking about this as well. The state of New York, in their planning group, has a whole document on transfer of development rights, and I think I sent you that maybe very recently. So there's some background out there, and what I'd like to do is let you talk about the specifics of the project and why you came up with it and where you're going to go with it.
Well, when I first became interested in this property, put it under contract.
Scribner Road. Can you kind of give a background as to where it is so they have a better feeling for it?
Yes, you're up. So this property is located at 1725 Scribner Road. It's directly across from the Scribner Road School. There's an entrance that I believe is, well, am I correct, 112 feet of frontage on Scribner?
Right.
And then it goes back, and it's like a T-shaped parcel. And then goes back and opens up into approximately 10 acres, a little over 10 acres here. There is a gore of land that's owned by the town of Penfield that is used for drainage and maybe green space purposes. And I believe there's a drainage ditch or swale that was cut into this to alleviate some drainage problems that are occurring
Coming
at
out of-
Colts Run.
Out of, right, split rail run and.
Yes.
Yep.
So this property had been in a gentleman's estate for quite some time. Actually, the estate didn't even know about it until they started digging deeper into all the records. So it's been laying fallow for many years, and the people who live along Falling Brook have kind of become accustomed to it being their woods, if you will. We decided when we looked into this parcel that the conventional layout was for 13 lots, and they're relatively large lots, would be a significant land disturbance of this parcel. For grading purposes, you would have to pretty much denude the whole parcel to put in a road and to put in some home pads and things like that. Rather than do that, we came up with an idea that we would put a smaller footprint construction of duplex townhomes, ranches predominantly for seniors. And as we looked at this, we thought, well, maybe I can make this project a little more feasible if we reduce the density for my Crown Point project, which is on another paper here, I'll show you in a moment, and bring it over here, and the Crown Point location would benefit from reducing the density from 12 lots to 5 as it transitions into a neighborhood that is not quite as dense as we would build in Crown Point Phase 4. So it seemed to make sense that we could preserve open space, wood space, reduce the impact on both neighborhoods really by just transferring 7 units from Crown Point over to the Scribner Road property. I went ahead at Supervisor LaFontaine's request, had a neighborhood meeting, we sent out invitations to all the neighbors. We had a very good turnout, and we got a lot of comments and feedback from them. We made adjustments to our plan where we tried to locate these buildings to provide the maximum distance from the neighboring property lines. And we also eliminated a cul-de-sac that was at the end where we had some units rotated. So we brought these units so they're all parallel and more compact. We had a drainage pond initially located to the east of the property here. But based on comments that I got from the people, Mr. I believe his name is Reitz, and some of the neighbors, actually we had neighbors from Split Rail come in and talked about drainage issues. So they're still experiencing drainage problems there. So it seems that we may be able to help the area-wide drainage by relocating our detention pond here and possibly offering relief to this swale that's on the town property. We're not sure that would require some additional engineering, but our initial cursory analysis seems to think that that would help. Because Mr. Reed says he gets tremendous amounts of water, several feet of water seasonally in his backyard.
And where is he, if you would?
He's located right here to the north on this parcel, just beyond.
Just north of, okay.
This is the yellow home that Clarence Hall.
Okay, I was gonna say, so that's the former Hall, the former Hall home. Got
And
it.
actually, Ange Murray's daughter lives just to the east of the northern portion of that project.
One of the things that I
Right.
tried to encourage Mr. Baker in the design was to not put a unit directly on the road. We really want to try and keep that more of a wooded presence, if you will, and create a nice entrance. So we intentionally try and keep units away from the road, and then change some of our unit layouts so that we were not as close to these neighbors here along Scribner Road. So we're doing our best to keep ourselves away from the neighbors, let them still enjoy their peace and quiet. Again, much less impact than it would have if I dropped 13 single-family homes with lots of backyard recreation, swimming pools, swing sets, barbecue pits, all that good stuff that goes along with more estate lot type development. So this seemed to be, again, a senior project, duplex ranch town homes.
Private drive versus dedicated.
Private drive versus a dedicated road. And just seems to make sense that we can also save about a third of the wooded area of the property. So that's the reasoning behind the Scribner Road property. For the Crown Point property, so you have a little more graphical idea about the impact that would have is, if the 12 units are constructed as they were originally designed, there's a significant amount of mass grading that has to be done. Again, the site would most likely need to be pretty much cleared completely to the building limits. You know, the thought is that that is a very nicely wooded parcel with a lot of mature trees. The density seems to slack off as you head to the south. It made sense to come in with 5 estate lots that are slightly over an acre.
We got 3 of them that are over an acre and 2 of them that are 3.5 acres.
So
4 and 3 incorporate the you know, that land.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Less runoff to the creek to the west.
So we reduce the runoff, we reduce the grading impact, the clearing impact, the number of physical structures within that wooded area.
Length of dedicated road.
The length of the dedicated road actually shortened as well, yes. So for an area that seems to be, you know, pretty, environmentally valuable, if you will, we thought that this would be a good approach. So it was a nice trade-off for both parcels. We saved the environmental impact on both. And we weren't taking all the density from one and cramming it and filling the daylights out of the other. That was not our intention. Our intention was to come up with a balanced approach that really worked for both of them.
And houses that are townhouses for seniors.
Yes, townhouses are for seniors. So that would be, and with regard to the location relative to the school, senior traffic trip generation is generally not quite, but not always, quite as limited. It's more limited than typical single-family residential where there's a lot of trips to and from and what have you. So we don't think that the 7 additional lots would cause any traffic problems. We're talking about a total of 20 home sites with traffic. Scribner Road should be able to handle it even during school hours. So.
And on the Scribner Road site, the land south of Ross Brook, that extra acreage, what was the thought or the plan with that?
If you would like it, I would deed it to the town. If you don't, we'll put it in the homeowners association.
That was going to be my next. That was going to be my next question. Is that are you planning a homeowners association for this project, and then that would cover the normal plowing, the grass cutting, the basic things, including building maintenance and things like that.
Yes. So we would do all your exterior maintenance and reserves for roof replacements, exterior work, and what have you.
Got it.
Anticipate that this would be, I'm going to say middle market pricing to upper middle, so we would probably be starting right around the 300, 325 price point and go up from there.
Steve, are you looking to have this kind of a similar feel with your development on Timberglen?
Yes, so the idea with, very much so, with Timberglen, where we preserved a lot of green space, that was actually a 20-acre site that we preserved 9 acres out of it. We only developed 11. And the benefit was we created open space, we created a nice wooded atmosphere for the homeowners. It's a very desirable place to live. I actually talked to a realtor just the other day. She has 3 clients that have it on their shopping list, and they're just waiting for someone to put their house for sale on the market, and they're just not going on. So it turned out to be a very desirable development.
Steve, and just remind us, what was your starting price on those homes, if you would?
We started in the 290s.
Okay.
They ultimately sold for significantly more. Than that.
There were some that were up near 400, weren't there?
There were some over.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's some pretty pricey patio homes up there.
It was a superb location.
Yeah.
Relative obviously to 250 and 441, so extremely convenient. We did, BME did the site plan for us. No offense. I didn't know.
Well, it's because he was out of town at the time.
And he was in Florida, I think. Anyways, they did a real nice job where we curved the road, and again, we tried to do that here. We don't want to come in and just make a T intersection. We tried to make it interesting.
Give it some character,
yes.
if you will.
Also slows people down, curves and things like that. So again, we certainly want to cater to that senior market and definitely want to do something that's, you know, more upscale.
Because I don't think there's a lot of, I use the word children, but a lot of kids in the Timber Glen cul-de-sac back there's pretty much.
I think it's zero.
Yeah.
Grandkids being babies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually,
Right, right.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay.
Steve, you had a meeting with the neighbors. Can you, and I know that you were vigilant about getting out because you were in trying to get addresses and everything from us. Can you talk to the board a little bit about the results of that meeting, what kind of came out of it?
well, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and the initial response from any neighbor who backs up to a wooded parcel for some time
Right.
is never good, okay? However, I had some, you know, probably more than half had a more realistic approach to what was going on. I actually even had one neighbor say, I had an opportunity years ago and I tried to get you all to buy this property and nobody would talk to me about it. And now, you know, we've got someone who bought it and is gonna do something with it. So I guess we have to live with it, which is a very realistic approach. But by the same token, we're not taking advantage of that saying, well, we're gonna do whatever we wanna do. We tried to take a thoughtful approach that would not have a devastating impact on any of the property values. If anything, it's probably a better impact than what would be the conventional zoning approach. So, you know, these people would wind up with a road in their backyard. You know, there's not much better way to do that.
You mentioned some changes were made after the meeting. Did you,
Yes.
you tweaked it? Now, did you then present those changes to the same people?
I was waiting to have my meeting with you folks because I didn't want to, if this was going nowhere, there was no point continuing on with them, and I would let them know that it wasn't going to go forward, or it won't go forward in the form as we proposed. So I was trying to get a direction from the board this evening to be able to give them feedback and get your feedback. You know, frankly, if you have suggestions that you think might be relevant to making this a better project, we're certainly open to that.
So you're buying the property regardless?
Yes.
Right. So if this didn't work out, you go the conventional route?
Yes.
And that would be...
Not as preferred,
Yeah.
but it is a good site. And it's frankly one of the few Penfield school sites that's out there right now. You know, Crown Point's Penfield with Webster schools. I can't tell you how many people I get that really want Penfield with Penfield schools. So for me, that's kind of balances my inventory in Penfield a little bit, even though it's a relatively small project.
So these questions are probably more for Jim. Since this predates me, I just want to get some bearings here. So this conventional concept plan, has this been reviewed by a previous board, or what's the zoning right now?
No, right now the zoning is R-1-20, and you're reading my mind, because my next question really was, when you came to us, you said that you could support 13 units on that property. So we did see a plan for 13 units. Is it 13 now? I think it's 12 now, isn't it?
No.
13. So the question is, and I understand you're showing rain gardens and all that type of thing for drainage purposes, but our discussion after the PRC meeting internally was, he's probably going to have to build a pond, which you're certainly proposing to do with the townhouse project. One of those lots probably would have to be dedicated to a pond or some type of drainage facility other than just backyard swales with vegetative growth in them. So your thoughts on that in terms of...
My thoughts on that's an engineering question, but I don't believe that there's anything that would require me to, quote, give up a lot as long as the engineer designs a functional drainage that meets town code and New York State.
Right, and I don't expect you at this point in time to be able to do that, but I want you to be aware of the fact that, if this were to move forward in some way with the neighbors or whomever, when you came back, you would certainly have to demonstrate to this board that you were going to be in compliance with the conventional type zoning, if you will, for that site. So it might be 13, it might be 12. I don't know that at this point in time, you probably don't either. But a lot of it would be dependent upon how much drainage you have to address. You're talking about, and I'm not talking about the new plan, but you're talking about the drainage issues in that neighborhood now. If they're that bad, then certainly something would have to be done with those 13 units to accommodate trying to resolve some of those concerns. So
Well, I only have to legally, correct me if I'm wrong,
I
accommodate my
understand.
own drainage. I don't have to fix the drainage problems.
You do not have to even say
Just
it.
went through this at Webster.
You're right. We
We
understand.
came to terms. I helped them out.
We
with the
understand.
problem
But
that they
didn't you say at the beginning of your talk that
You said
this
you
would
could.
help the...
I will.
You would try.
drainage?
That's a benefit of my project.
Okay, so,
I'm not saying that.
But just getting back to the density issue, it's just, before you get back to this group, if you do come back to this group, we would have to verify exactly whether it's 13, whether it's 12, whatever the case may be.
Right.
okay, so let's go to page 2 here. The conventional concept plan, again, that is just based on conventional zoning, correct?
Yes, you took 100 by 200 minimum
But this
lot
is-
to put them on the site.
So,
Has this been approved?
Oh, no, this is strictly a concept to show the town staff and you.
He isn't
No, I get
doing anything.
that, Jim, so let
The
me
Crown,
ask.
oh, I'm sorry, the Crown Point portion?
Yes.
Yes, that has been all approved.
So
Okay.
I just want to make
I'm
sure
sorry.
that.
all right,
Yep.
thank you, Tony.
So
That's what I'm just
property
trying to get my bearings here.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
Yes, the Crown Point
Convention-
subdivision
that has been approved.
Yes.
2000.
so what is to prevent, this is a logistic question, what is to prevent you from going from picture 1 to picture 2 right now?
Economics.
Okay, so then what you're proposing is to take 5 or 6 of these homes and put
Seven.
seven homes and put them sort of in this clustered concept off the Scribner property and modify this, okay. And you're saying, Jim, there's no precedent, this hasn't been done?
We have not done it in Penfield. It's been done around the state, but it has not been done here.
Okay.
I take a little contrary view in terms of when I asked about, the informational meeting, and you're saying you're waiting to go back to see how they feel about any changes you make. I'm not going to support or go further unless I have a meeting with the residents and I hear from them here how they feel about the conventional sketch and any changes you've made. I just want to make, because I have heard from a couple of them some talk around the time of the meeting that was not positive, and so I would want to have the residents have an opportunity to come here and talk to us about
So you'd
it.
like to have a neighborhood meeting like you've had in the past for other
Yeah.
operations?
The information, yes.
So I'm going to ask a question. Should that be done in the form of a hearing so that we're not doing multiple public?
It's
No.
not a hearing.
Can't be a
It would be a public
Okay.
informational meeting where you would come in and make a presentation. We've done this in other parts of the town with other developers.
By the neighbors
And the neighbors come in just
Townhouse.
as if it were a public hearing, but it's not. It's just it's an information gathering process for the neighbors to understand what you're trying to accomplish and to give the board the ability to get more information and input from the neighbors to see what they think about it. And if things can be mitigated or made better, it'd be an opportunity for everybody to get a chance to look at it and give input back to the board before it moves
So-
forward.
The more important thing is that these plans here are more than adequate for that public information, for the public information meeting. If you went to a public hearing, then you're going to be spending a little bit more time with Mr. Baker, who will want to spend a little bit more time visiting your wallet. And so the benefit of this is that the neighbors are notified, they come in, do a presentation, the board has the opportunity to hear, the goods, the bads, they get a chance to have the discussion about, moving, 7 lots from here to there and vice versa, type of thing. Not that you will get too many people probably on this side, going from, the 12 lots to 7 lots, or excuse me, the 12 lots to 5 lots, you'll tend to get more people on the Scribner Road side. So that's part of, and then the board gets the feedback back from both entities, both groups.
And we did have a drawing similar to this that we presented at the meeting, and I copied Mr. Costello on that, along with all the comments that we got in writing from people. So, we did try to address as much as possible those comments, again, by, in drainage, I have water on my property is a very generic description of a problem. We didn't get a lot of specifics. So how often and who and what, is something that would probably need to be identified a little more closely. I don't know, Mr. Costello, if the engineering department or highway department has addressed any of these drainage problems and may be able to shed
Oh,
additional
that
information
has
on
been
it.
an ongoing issue for several years.
So,
And
but
that to
again,
me
we,
is independent of.
That's right. That's
yes,
absolutely right.
but that'll be relative to the comments that you'll get from the neighbors is why I brought that back up. So again, we took and moved the pond from the sketch that we showed them over to here. And then we did take these units and I think it was not only these, but some over here that we changed to try and, it was 10 feet, 10 feet is 10 feet. And what, if we don't have to clear property lines to the property lines, we won't in these areas around some of these buildings. The nice part about it is for the people on Fallbrook, they have, the town property here that will remain undisturbed, to the extent that the town does or does not do work there. And again, we try to not disturb the frontage along Scribner, so.
I certainly understand your reasoning, I mean, as far as, the concept, but certainly I want to hear.
Sure.
Firsthand from the residents, and I think we sometimes struggle, we're challenged by educating people as to, what is, what you're by law allowed to build there, that it's not just a simple yes, no by the town, which you're aware of, but it's another opportunity for us to engage folks, to have them understand the concept of this is how it's zoned, and this is what could happen, and to get their feedback.
Right, by the same token, and I think most of them understand that property rights allow someone to build on their property. So it's, when 5 people say, we don't like your project, we get to keep our woods, yay, that doesn't really quite happen that way. We'll come in and probably build something, and there'll still be an impact. So, the point being, we're doing our best to reduce that impact for the greatest number of people.
Sure.
So, happy to do that meeting and coordinate that with Mr. Costello.
That'd be fine. And Paula brings up a good point, and you've noted it as well. There have been some drainage issues in that neighborhood, and you are looking at the possibility of trying to see if you can resolve some of them. I know you can't do that now, and I don't expect you to, but I think when you get to a point where you're in a public meeting, or a public informational meeting, people will ask those questions. And at least conceptually in your mind, you should have an idea of how you could possibly do that. If you're not going to go onto our property or the town property to do it, and you're staying on your own property to do it, you should have an idea of how the drainage system is going to work to be able to mitigate some of the issues they're dealing with now. So, because that will be an issue. I mean, that they will bring that up because it's been a perennial issue for them in many cases over there.
Do you have any design or existing data relative to what drainage facilities are there?
Yeah, we have a lot of information. We have drainage studies, and we have all sorts of flow projects that we've been working on over the years. So my suggestion would be to sit down with Mark Valentine and probably Eric Payne.
Mark has recently, as part of a group that came into the watershed management, his team has been doing some work in that area as well. So he's got the latest
So he
and
can plug
greatest
you in and
for
give you
that,
some
and it would be
information.
good probably for Walt and Steve to meet with Mark and Mike O'Connor.
Good advice. So
What,
We didn't show the pond on your property because we rented your permission before we did that. So, we thought you would, but somebody might not like that.
Jim, what is town law 261?
it's the development of transfer rights, and they do it in certain areas in the state of New York, and there's, after reading the documentation and talking to Dick, it's a situation where you don't necessarily have to adopt the law. It's kind of like, it's different than what we did with incentive zoning, where we had a local law. You could, because if you wanted to strengthen it or make it a little more restrictive, you could do that as home rule, but you're not obligated to do that. You can do it basically as it's written now.
Right, so you kind of, I mean, would the town be able, if an application came in for this concept with the 18 patio home, I mean, is there, do we have the ability to say, hey, we like that, and we'd rather see that than this, and move forward with that kind of a concept?
Yes, you could. If you felt that it was appropriate, you could do that.
Without the transfer of the
Without the
rights?
transfer, right.
Well,
I'm just-
no, without the transfer of the development rights, you couldn't legally just start transferring property, density issues.
You'd have to follow.
You'd have to follow, that's right, you'd have to follow the law.
So the answer to my
And there's a
question is no.
criteria to do that. The answer is, the short answer is no.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's what I was trying to figure out. Got it.
Short of rezoning the property.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know-
you could do the cluster, but you'd only be
permitted to do 13.
That's right. You can use 278, that's right.
278, right.
And you can increase the density, you can use what you're entitled to.
Okay.
And you could even do zero lot line, which would allow for duplex type units, and we've done that in the past in Penfield, but you cannot increase the density.
Right.
It's hard to do with 13 to do duplexes.
Somebody gets
One in a
lucky.
unit.
One person gets lucky.
So anyways, the other nice thing about this is, as a planning tool, is you are not increasing the overall number of units being built in the town. So when you transfer development rights, it's the total number of units between the two projects remains the same. So it's not like you're giving density or anything like that. You're just moving it from one state to the other. And again, I don't know if you had a chance to read, did you circulate the transfer of the development? It's a very informative. I actually learned that a lot through reading that when I got it from Jim, that it's a very discretionary tool, and it was written to be a very broad law, purposely, so that you would have the flexibility, any municipality would have the flexibility to use this tool in any way they see fit to better manage the development inventory, for lack of a better term, within their municipality. So you can, where density can be moved either to alleviate higher densities or to put them in areas where the infrastructure can handle the additional density, which we think 7 units on this site is no stretch for this particular area. That it works out well, that you can be flexible in creating projects throughout the town. And it has no financial impact on the town in any way.
Right, and basically the footprint of that's going to be on the ground of the 2 townhouses versus a single-family home will be smaller. Basically, there's going to be less runoff because there's less footprint on the ground, more green, less road.
You can do projects, like in this case, we're doing a partial to a partial. You can do an entire, I could say maybe take the entire 12 units at Crown Point and move them in their entirety to somewhere else, and nothing would be built at Crown Point Phase 4. So there's so much flexibility there. In some ways they talk about even selling them, so that they have to make a monetary value, and the town can actually sell development rights or put them in a development rate bank.
Right.
So it's a very, very well thought out planning and development tool for municipalities to use.
Okay.
Any questions?
So, thank you. You're a great straight person. That was going to be my next line, is any additional questions the board might have for either Steve or Walt on this? And then I would ask Jim, any additional comments that you'd like to add to the record that you don't believe have been added to the record on behalf of the staff?
I think he's explained exactly what he's told us at the PRC.
Okay.
I guess my comment to you would be to be comfortable with that law. You obviously have had some chance to look at it. Maybe the others should have more time to look at it. And then possibly we could talk to Mr. Horowitz to make sure that we're all on the same page if your intent is to go forward with an information.
Yeah, I think it's good that we wrap our hands around that before, and heads around that before we have that scheduling meeting.
Okay, so right now, next steps will be that we're going to circle back with Mr. Horowitz for any discussion, comments from him. And so from an applicant standpoint, what's their next steps?
Well, before we get to him, the other thing I'd like to do for you is probably get the excerpts, which I should have done, and I apologize for that, but get the excerpts out of the 1990 comprehensive plan, because it doesn't just make a recommendation. It really gives a rationale as to why they were proposing to do it back then. It does go back to his comments. Again, they were trying to preserve some open space properties in the town, and rather than have them developed, have them transferred over to areas that had sanitary sewer, so that those areas on septic would stay vacant. But I'll get you that information as well. And then once you're comfortable enough over the next couple of weeks or whatever, and we've had a chance to talk to Mr. Horowitz, then if you want me to, we could schedule a public information meeting, and then we will notify all the neighbors in proximity to this site. And then we can do that at your convenience.
Okay. So we'll look here over the next handful of weeks to move forward with a public information meeting. Someone like to make a motion that would be our next step, would be moving forward with a public information meeting?
I'll move that we set up and inform the residents of a public informational meeting here with enough notice so that folks have a chance to make accommodations to come here.
Okay,
I'll second that.
second. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, those in favor, aye? Opposed? All right, we'll work here collaboratively over the next few weeks to get something set up, and with the appropriate amount of time from an advertising standpoint. We'll do our normal advertising, but we'll be for a public information meeting.
Right.
So, okay? Great. Thank you
very much. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Tony, was Starbucks held at their request?
Yes. Starbucks was held at their request. So I'll just reiterate as we move into action items that item A, Starbucks relocation Penfield Road, at the request of the applicant, that is being held until February 28, 2018. All right, we'll move on to Bayview Landing, 1185 Empire Boulevard.
Yes, Tony, at the last meeting that we had, last work session,
It is.
I think the board was interested in trying to get a feel for what the neighbors could and could not see, and we asked Pasco to prepare a
Oh, okay.
From profile.
Looking down.
Looking
off
down,
Old
yes,
Westfall.
if you were to be looking down from 24,
West.
or Old Westfall, excuse me. And unfortunately, I mean, if you're not an engineer, this may mean little to you, but it's done in it's a profile with a horizontal versus vertical
Right.
staging, so that, in essence, what he's really trying to convey is, and I'm a little bit annoyed by it, because I was hoping that he would utilize the second floor versus the first. You may always be able to see more out of your second floor than you can your first, but that being the case, I also went through, just so that you wouldn't be totally thrown off, and I did give you the pictures last time, which I still have here for the winter views, but for the summer views, I'll let you have these. One to Tony.
I've got one, Cos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it is kind of deceiving. I mean, that doesn't really tell you a lot when you look at it, but when you are on the site, and we were standing in the yard, the house veers off to the southeast.
Yeah, you said
And that doesn't mean that you can't see it. I don't want to give the impression that they can't look out their side window and look down and see a view of something from that angle, but the house primarily views from the southeast, so everything's geared to that view as you're going towards the Melly property more than anything else. But, and I'm certain that they can look down at times. Right now, the pictures that I showed you that we took, you can actually see the house down from where the proposal's outlined to be developed. But it is very difficult, and certainly in the summertime it would be impossible. Right now, you can kind of look through a million trees and see something down there. I saw the house standing down there looking up, so I know it's there.
Yeah.
I don't know how visual it is for them, but again, that might be an issue where, you know, you might want to bring them in an informational meeting again, and we've already had one, but find out really what it is they would and would not see, and maybe even let the staff work with them and let us look and see what they've got. But that was the outstanding issue at this point in time. I don't think you had other things that came up that you were overly concerned by. I think Dr. Howard's indicated to us that he'd be more than willing to work with us to mitigate anything he can in terms of lighting. I don't anticipate noise as being a big issue other than movement of vehicles and parking lots.
Visual, I think.
And visuals, and then of course, you would have jurisdiction over the architecturals if you saw fit to move forward. You can envision the K2 brewery. The first building would be almost right next to the K2 brewery. So you can't see the K2 brewery from their houses. You probably would not see the first building at all. The second building, you might be able to see a portion of it.
So is the third building the
That is
K2 brewery? Is that to represent the K2? Because the applicant was proposing two, so the third building
That's right, yeah,
is a K2?
That's right.
Okay, so
And you can't see that one at all.
as I project down from here.
Right, if you're standing in their yard, they cannot see the K2 brewery.
That is the third building.
That's kind of tucked into a little cove-type setting next to the
Yeah, exactly.
hill.
And both of these are reflected as three-story buildings.
That's right.
my historical reluctance for this project continues.
I think the biggest issue, in terms of lighting and that kind of thing and activity for the people on Old Westfall would be the 33 townhouse units. I mean, those will be down next to they would be like their next door neighbors
Right.
going down that hill.
That's not what we're looking
If there was going to be a visual impact, that would be the visual impact. I'm certain that they probably wouldn't even see most, if not all of this, especially with the lighting. I mean, the ambient lighting going down the hill would probably...
Yeah,
Not
our
decide.
discussion is for this.
I know. Yeah.
That's
The other
what
one's
we have responsibility
Right.
for
So you're only
versus
responsible.
the planning board having responsibility for the 33 towns.
That's right.
So, next steps that we want to see with this board?
What are the potential next steps?
You can table, you can continue to table it.
Beyond tabling, if we want to be more active to it.
We're at a point, I think there's really three directions that we would go. We would approve the application, we deny the application, or we reject
I'm hard pressed to keep tabling it, you know, it doesn't seem,
Well, you're technically not tabling it. You had a public informational meeting and you asked for some input.
and we got it.
It took us a while to get you that input
Yeah.
because one of the issues was getting treeless,
Well, when I
leafless
say-
trees.
Yeah, when I say tabling, I mean
Right.
holding.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Holding.
putting it on our parking lot. But you're right. I mean, you
did
had your
that.
public informational
We asked for
meeting.
more. We got that.
So as Tony says, you've got the option of either going
Continue
forward
to
with an
hold it.
application, continuing to hold it, or just outright deciding that you don't want to move forward on it.
Well, you know, you look at it, what we saw that we denied back in the day, I mean, this is a world of difference than what the Galel application was. And he's really worked to make it amenable. I don't see it, like you're saying, the upper level's the part that's more disruptive for the neighbors to look out at. This isn't. So it's not like we could say, you know, we don't like it because it's impacting Westfall. It's not really. The one thing that bothers me is the traffic. But that's generated not from that as much as the other apartments that look to be being approved by planning board.
With respect to the traffic, it does give him the ability to have more capital to do some things on Empire Boulevard at that intersection for us to mitigate some of the issues that we're having. He's more than willing to work on extending the middle lane for traffic safety purposes and whatever else the state DOT might allow for that area. But that's a decision that you have to make as to whether or not that's feasible.
Independent upon the state DOT,
That's right.
which is not
Well, if we move to approve it,
dependable.
could one put it with conditions for the
all within those?
Well,
road improvements?
you're not really moving to approve it. What you're really doing is trying to decide whether you want to move forward with several applications. The first one would be,
Well, I know, you gotta do the rezoning.
yes, if
Yeah,
you're
that's-
supportive of the rezoning,
Right.
which if you're going to move forward on the site plan, I would recommend the rezoning because I don't like to see
I know.
cross lines on zoning for different projects.
Very
But it might solve a problem with that pre-existing non-conforming at 50 Wilbur Track Road. But that's what you'd have to do. You'd have to have a public hearing on the rezoning.
So that would be the first step.
And as part of that,
Is
we could have them submit materials to the state DOT and get input back from them as to determining what could be done to make it a safer intersection down there. And I have no idea at this point in time what that might be. They'd have to give recommendations.
Buildings are well within.
And then, of course, if everything goes through and you're agreeable, and he's agreeable to those recommendations, you would make them conditions of approvals. And if
Okay,
he
how
didn't do it, he couldn't build.
How about this? I would move that we accept the site plan to go ahead to do a public hearing for the rezoning portion of the property to make it all copacetic, I don't know what the word would be.
Okay.
So it's all agreeable, that makes sense, that the lines are defined correctly.
Well, if you do that, though, I want to make sure the board's comfortable enough to move forward on a site plan review, because if you're just doing the rezoning, we could leave it the way it is today, and it's not bothering anybody on a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't put you through a rezoning if you weren't going to move forward, at least to hear the application
Well, that's
for
what
a
I'm
site
saying,
plan.
if we accepted what is before us,
As part of,
and then go ahead
and have a
for the
two-prong approach with the
rezoning,
rezoning and then the site plan review.
then it's
And you might make modifications in the site plan review
Exactly.
process. You might not, it might not be the same project when you end the process.
I know, I think about that.
So.
That's what I'm throwing out.
So if you would just restate that again,
Restate
Linda,
that?
so that,
Yeah, we-
Rob and I were.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I
It
was
was
just-
my fault. I should have, because I always
Mhm.
tell people to keep one conversation, so I broke my own rule. I
I
apologize.
understand.
So,
No, since, my thought was that since we've gone as far as I think we can with all this, that I see that it's an acceptable site plan, that we accept the plan, and then move forward for the rezoning of the district boundaries of the LaSalle's Landing to, was it LaSalle's Landing and residential?
It's currently R120,
R120,
and then you would go to LaSalle's Landing.
LaSalle's Landing, because that seems to be a
And that would
issue
also
with
include
the
that 50
properties.
Wilbur Tract Road, so the owner of that
Mhm.
property would have to be supportive, which
Right.
I believe they would be.
So if we move to
But we'd
public
have to
hearing, we
talk to
can
them
hear
about that.
more about their thoughts of all that.
Mhm.
But it would be, we wouldn't be stagnant, we'd be moving ahead with some form of.
And if we ultimately opt to not rezone, then that does away with
It
this.
does away with the
Right.
site plan review
Right.
process.
Yeah, so hearing.
I think we told you at the last meeting that what, the entire area that we were looking, that we would recommend to you if we were gonna do the rezoning was about 6.05 acres. And of that, about 4 of those 6 acres are wetland. So you're not really doing anything with them other
Right.
than drawing a line, so there's some continuity
But I would base.
on the plan. So you have 2
pulling the
acres of usable
rezoning
area.
based on what your recommendations are to make it all.
Right.
well, the continuity being the following the property lines versus
That's right.
just a line that was drawn in the sand, so to
That's
speak.
right.
And I think that's important because as I'm looking at this is what I was talking to Tony about, the footprint of the buildings are all within LaSalle's Landing.
They aren't yet. Well, I'm sorry.
Well,
The
they are.
footprint of the buildings are, the parking areas associated with them are not. And I
Right.
want to make sure that parking areas are not sitting in
Hence the
single
No,
family
I understand that, but I'm
residential
saying the
zones.
buildings are
Yes.
within the
Yes, they
LaSalle's.
are.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
they
you.
are, yep.
Okay.
And then, of course, you got 50 Wilbur Tract Road, which is, been there forever as a R120 pre-existing non-conforming use.
Which is this building right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And accepting the site plan would also be accepting the.
Right, 'cause it
About
jots up a
what the
little bit.
property he
Yes,
wants to
and
donate to the
That's right.
county parks
Commercial.
department.
And certainly, you in the past, at least as long as we've been together, you don't rezone property just for the sake of rezoning it. It's
No.
subject to whatever it is you want to approve for that site as part of that review process. So he's not going to be able to turn around and come back with 50 units or 100 units or something. And I know he can't because the site is so constrained, and he's the first to admit it, but I think he even tried to get 4 more units in, and he said he just couldn't do it, so.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so
I will second Linda's motion.
it's been moved by Linda, seconded by Rob, to take the next step, which would be, for a hearing from a rezoning standpoint. Further discussions, comments?
We would just have the owners of those properties petition you for a rezoning.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm only in
absolutely.
favor of procedurally moving it. Right now, I'm not in favor of this at all.
And I join
Understood.
Paula in her sentiments. I'm okay with moving it to the next step, but I reserve the right to vote no if I'm not satisfied at the end of the day.
With what we hear at the
I
the
think we all
hearing.
feel that way.
Yeah, because I'm not entirely sold on the overall project
And
as it
there's
stands
a big
today.
element, frankly, of buyer beware here that's really bothered me from the get-go.
And the other part of it is, he'd have to commit to helping resolve the traffic issue
Yes.
somehow along that part of
Yes.
the
And be able to do so.
Right.
So there's a lot of ifs, but
Yeah.
I'm still not there. But I
Well,
will certainly
you provided a
procedurally.
process, though, to see if it can happen or not.
Yeah, and I think I'm on the same page with Paula.
Okay, so this is to look at the possible rezoning and how that would work, how people feel about that, and not get into any of the site plan aspect of it in any great detail.
And a hearing on rezoning is by no means an endorsement of it.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor to move forward solely to take a look at the rezoning aspect of that. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That brings us to our last item on the agenda, 2126 5 Mile Line Road, conditional use permit, application that we heard last Wednesday evening for a revised or renewed or updated restaurant in the former Cha-Cha's building. Welcome.
So, for the board's information, just a review, I'm going to pass these around for you, because I received this material just the other day. This is a photograph of the signage that he's proposing for the site, which you asked for. The second portion, I took a picture of the area in question regarding the walk-in cooler area, and also I noted that there was a sign on the back of the building that Ron Brody had mentioned.
Parking.
He agreed to take down. The other thing is there's a drawing there that Jim Fahey had done, basically enclosing the doorway to the walk-in cooler. I instructed Jim, and he followed my instructions to ensure that the addition did not exceed or go outside of the boundaries of the existing building. Just for your information, if you look at the plan, it's not easy. I did send it to you, so some of you may have seen it. The addition is basically an 8-foot by 7.5-foot addition to the back that covers the doorway, and he opens up another doorway to get out for fire safety purposes, but he maintains the existing setback all the way through. The intent is to put a block up similar to the block that's there now, and then paint it to match the existing building, and then bring a roof line down consistent with the walk-in cooler so that it kind of all matches all the way across. Now, he also does have to, just if you're willing to move forward on this, he will have to, and he's already applied for an application to the Historic Preservation Board, which he will be appearing before on the 1st of February for both the sign and the addition.
Yeah, I support this application. I think that the public hearing, or the meeting the other week went very well. I'm excited that you chose to open up a restaurant in Penfield.
Again.
Again.
Yes, it's good to be home.
I have no doubt that it will be a upstanding partner in Four Corners intersection area, in the Four Corners Business District, with all the other businesses, especially the businesses that use that public parking lot. And so I support this moving forward, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Before we do any voting, though, I do need your input on a couple of issues. He hit all the key notes at the public informational meeting. He was right on with his occupancy requirements for the three portions of the building. One of the things I want to run past you, though, is the last time that we talked about outdoor entertainment at this site with Paula Catalano, was she had made an application to have outdoor entertainment between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. and she was supportive of doing it one day a week. And you gave her the ability to do it on any one of the days. It was like a Thursday or Saturday.
Yeah.
Yep. And she adhered to that. So my question to Joe was, can you adhere to that, or are you not comfortable with that? And I'd just like to hear what your comments are, because we haven't had a chance to talk very much about it, and see what your comments are.
Sure. I was hoping for, I'm not even sure if I'm going to use it, but if it is successful, possibly getting 2 evenings and extending the hours until 10 o'clock. It would be primarily weekends, Friday, Saturday night. I doubt I'd be doing much during the week with that.
Okay, my question to you, Jim, is was there any comments from anyone when Cha-Cha's
I
did
never
that?
received anything either positive or negative.
Right.
I don't
Wonder
think
if
they
anybody
did it
heard
that
it.
often. I mean, they did it that one year under the 3 permits that they had. We never heard anything from anybody, and that's, I think, what pushed you to the point where you were comfortable having a permit issued for it. I don't know how many times she did it, if at all, after she actually got the permit.
For her?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, 6 to 9.
Well, and I believe that the applicant with the outdoor music, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said it would be kind of a
1-2 piece acoustic. That's just,
Right.
no bands.
No amplify.
No amps,
No amplification.
No.
And, I mean, where it's faced, the frontage there is kind of facing the business district per se. It's
And
not,
traffic.
yeah, and traffic
Noise.
going through, and
If I put a band out there, there wouldn't be any room for people.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
It's
hear
not
you.
that big of an area.
I'd be acceptable to that, moving it to 10 o'clock, because if we didn't hear anything, but subject to, anybody complaining, we have
Right,
to
if we get
know.
concerns, we're gonna have to sit down and talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No, I'd be in favor in year one, sticking to what Cha-Cha said.
Oh.
I mean, we've been, I think that we've set a precedent that, get in, operate,
Yeah.
and then,
But I'm almost looking at that was a year one, okay, and they did it, and it wasn't.
well, it's a different
so-
operation, so.
And
That's how, I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean,
I see Rob's point. I think that's a valid point. I kind of take a different perspective. I kind of want to give the applicant the opportunity to implement his business plan, his business model. If there is a problem, we have the ability to address it.
Call you up and say.
Yeah, or
Too
revoke something if it's a continual problem, but, I trust the applicant until proven not to trust the applicant.
That's how I feel.
That he's gonna be a good neighbor and a good partner, wants to have a Penfield-based business, and if something is not working with that 10 o'clock, then we have the opportunity as the board to address it with the owner. So I'm okay with the 10 o'clock, particularly with where it's going to be facing the intersection.
Right.
And the fact that it's not going to be a band or amplified music. And if it's a problem, then we'll deal with it down the road, but give him the opportunity to implement his business plan.
When were you looking to open?
Sometime mid-March, I'm
Okay,
hoping
so you'd be probably open a little bit before you even have anybody outside.
Yes,
Yeah.
and like I said, I'm not even sure
Yeah,
how often.
or even having anybody eating outside for the
Correct.
first couple of
No,
months.
it wouldn't be until summertime anyway.
Yeah. I'm okay with that, Jim, I think, given, and I think we've got a history with this applicant as far as his reputation precedes himself in a good way, and I'd be supportive of that.
Did you have anything else? Yeah, I thought you.
The only thing is
two
standard
items.
procedural stuff. I am putting in, because I've been having so many problems, I am putting in conditions on your behalf regarding the removal
Refuse.
of refuse in the morning,
Right on.
no earlier than 7. And there are residences in the area. I mean, when you start lifting dumpsters, it doesn't matter how far away you are, you can probably hear them. So we are requiring that nothing is picked up prior to 7 a.m. That's kind of on you now to work with your hauler, whoever that may be, to make sure. And then eventually we'll work with you once we get the parking lot established the way we want it, because we're going to be enclosing dumpsters and all that business. So-
Sammy DePrima was telling me the plan.
Exactly. So those kind of things, again, just, making sure that you're not a detriment and your patrons aren't a detriment to the neighbors around you, which I don't anticipate they will. And with Andy, I always give a guy a chance before I have to go after him. So, it's just being a good neighbor, basically.
Absolutely.
And I know you
I always
have been
plan
in the
on doing
past.
that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to work with anybody.
And you did approve 32 seats in the outdoor dining area, and we're going to keep the 32 seats as is.
I thought it was 40, I'm just...
Yeah, it was 8 tables with 4 people at it, so
Okay.
it's 32.
Okay,
If you want to work with the fire marshal to make sure it meets state code,
Okay.
I think that's what drove the process, was the state code required it to be at that, but
okay,
you can work with the fire marshal to make sure that's the case.
okay,
If
no
it's, if
problem.
it's 40,
Okay.
it's not going to make that much
I
difference.
recall
was-
that the 8 tables of 4, that pretty much fills up.
Yeah, it's not that big an area, you're right.
in
Yeah,
there anyway, if that's what it
that
is,
pretty
that's
much,
what
they
it is.
weren't
Not that
very
big an
big.
area.
Yeah, I recall correctly, it was pretty filled up.
Okay.
Okay,
Question,
absolutely.
am I approved for my temporary signage?
They don't have to deal with that.
Okay.
You have to go to the building department and work with Andy Sebagas for that purpose, and
Okay.
there is a permit process for it, and he'll work with you to get that taken
Okay.
care of. That's the coming soon sign?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll call you tomorrow about that and tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, we'll work through that.
Okay,
And then, again, the board, the Historic Preservation Board has to get back to this board with recommendations for approval of the signage and the addition. That's a condition of approval.
That's right.
okay.
And for those that are listening on PCTV right now, can you kind of summarize your menu and theme of the restaurant?
It's
gonna be a top-
his secret menu.
It's gonna be a
It's all your
phenomenal menu, something that nothing else in the city. It's gonna be a Top-Ed style restaurant. I am gonna be doing the wood fire pizza. It's all my years of experience owning 9 restaurants before this one. Like a lot of my favorites, I'm a chef by trade.
so they're mostly on my recipes. It's going to be something very nice, something Penfield's going to be proud of.
Are you gonna have some of those favorites from the day back in Crummers that people
What's your
talk about?
favorites?
Chicken wings?
Tater tots.
Thinking chicken wings,
It's
Linda?
not, no, it's not going to be sports bar style menu at all.
No.
There will be some burgers on there that are going to be like
That'd be
upscale a little
refreshing.
bit. It's going to be very nice.
You gonna have your
Very, very
chilies
nice.
or?
What's that?
Chili?
Yeah, I'll
I was
probably do
asking
the
about
white
that.
chicken chili. I'll probably still do the white chicken chili.
Gonna make somebody downstairs very happy.
You can always do, you can always have a retro special.
Yeah. Oh, that'd
Throwback.
be fun.
Special.
Huh?
What's it, retro
Yeah,
specials?
throwback.
Good for the Penfield community.
Okay, before we plan his menu,
We're doing a grand
or
opening.
replan his menu, any other items that, as it relates to signage, hours of operation, anything like that?
I did put in the note that it does close, the people have to be done by midnight. The staff can continue to work and clean the place up, but there can't be any service.
No service pass,
The
and that's
way
what it
people are
was
there.
with the previous.
That's
Four
right.
corners.
I'm taking that
That's four
wording,
corners.
that's
It's not
right.
gonna be an issue.
Taking that wording out of the
It's
old one.
fine, I'm 57, now I want to go to bed too.
All right, seeing no further comments, would entertain a motion of approval.
Oh, yeah, second.
Okay. And second by Linda?
Yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded. Jim will be preparing a resolution for our next meeting, which will be February 7th.
That's right.
And seeing, for roll call vote, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Very good, thank you very much. Good luck, look forward to it.
Thank you.
There being no further business to come before the board, the January 24th, 2018 work session stands adjourned at 8:17 p.m. Thank you very much to PCTV, everyone that participated.